It's all stupid. We're going to talk about marketing.
Marketing. We're
You
gonna talk
mother
about marketing.
effer. You dang skinny puppy.
I don't care what Osid's docket said. We're going to spend this whole episode talking about marketing. Are you excited for that? Are you excited for that?
This is Topline.
This episode is brought to you by the crippling fear of your typical sales process not working as well as it used to. Thankfully, it's also brought to you by Ecosystem-Led Growth, a new book by Crossbeam CEO and my good friend Bob Moore. Learn how your partner ecosystem will serve as your most efficient and scalable source of revenue growth. Sleep better at night and pre-order your copy at elgbook.com. That's elgbook.com.
No, you're good.
You're there, Sam. You're there.
I'm here?
Don't worry.
Good. All right.
Yeah, you're right. How you guys doing? How's Dublin, Sam?
Oh, Dublin. I'm here for HubSpot SKO, speaking about the new world of profitable, efficient growth tomorrow. And HubSpot is what a great company. And
I like that they sent Sam to Dublin. I just have to go to Boston next week.
I know, Taco's going to Boston next week. I was supposed to go to Boston, but I just said, you know what? I'm going to stay. I don't need to stay, cheer Jocko on. He can give the same speech I'm about to give. So, but I'm good.
Good. AJ.
I'm fine.
Poor little boobala.
I had so for all of you that are listening, and maybe it'll come out, I had a little bit of a rant to Osid and Sam before this. We had our company kickoff last week. It went super, super well. I know that Osid had his that also went well, and it's great to be refreshed. But some days, guys,
some days are better than others.
Some days are better than others.
Something just checks the box and sets us off, and it hits right in the right spot, and you're like, that's the only thing I'm going to focus in on.
For AJ, that thing is marketing. He doesn't want to talk about it. He does not want to talk about it.
The interesting thing is tomorrow is always another day. Like the reset is so interesting. Like you sleep it off. Like sometimes it takes 2 days and then it's done. And then you move on.
We talked about this in terms of writing. Where does remote work well for us? And this is one area where it does work well, where I can write the message, read the message, write the message, and then sleep on it and take the pause and then send it in the morning. But I always end it with let's chat about this. So I'll call out Ryan Milligan because we used him, VP of Ops Sales. And I am running parts of marketing today, and marketing and sales have their so Ryan played his.
Should we get rid of the marketing leader?
We should get rid of the marketing leader. Yes. That's why we're going to come to the conclusion at the end of this. We're just going to fire the marketing leader of the organization.
I cannot wait to fire that damn marketing leader.
And I was really feeling frustrated, and I let Ryan know that. He did the right thing. He called me immediately, and he was like, "Hey, we'll talk about it." So we talked about it, and we're good.
The other thing that's interesting is sometimes if you're having a adult conversation with somebody, when you were in offices, everybody would know, right? Like if anyone's voice is raised, everybody hears it. Now it's a distraction. You can do that one-on-one now.
Yeah.
Also, when you're really upset and you don't want anyone else to see, they don't have to see. Whereas back in the day, I remember there were a couple of times I had to leave the office because I was so angry that I was like, there's no point in people seeing me in this state. I need to move. I need to go out. I need to go home. And now you don't have the same issues.
You want to hear a really great story, guys? This
Yes.
is a great story. This is a good story. It was quick. And Matt Allison, my co-founder from Trendkite, is going to love this, and he'll say this story. So back in 2014, we were the last day of the quarter, and we were $100,000 away. It was actually looking pretty bleak at that point from our number. And Matt walked in at 10:30 a.m. Entire sales team had been there at 6 a.m. Of course we had been there at 6 a.m. And the ping pong table was right beside the sales floor. And Matt was playing ping pong with one of our engineers at 10:30 a.m. And I was pissed. That's not swearing. That doesn't count.
Yeah, that's
okay. Pissed is okay.
I was frustrated. And I grabbed Matt and I walked in, Matt. I was like, Matt, what are you doing? what is going on? And he was like, calm down, dude, whatever. And I was so mad. This is 27-year-old AJ. I punched a hole in the wall.
Oh,
I punched a hole
wow.
in the door. I literally just was like, get that out of here. I just punched it. And then I
Was
walked out.
it was like, did you punch? Is your hand okay, or it was like a little bit of it's like
I
fiber?
mean, I think I was fine.
He
I
was
let's
fine.
put
The
it-
wall
I
on
was
the other side. That was a big hole
Sam,
there.
my nickname at that time, and this is not a joke, was Rage Machine. Rage
Hmm.
was my nickname.
Really?
Wow.
As a sales leader. Oh, I was redheaded. I was hot-headed. I was as hot-headed as it gets at that time.
What age did you calm down? Because you're very chill
Girls,
now.
kids age.
Really?
That's what I calmed down. I had kids and was like, oh, I've got to not be this person that has like
Interesting.
driven me into that. Yeah, I was kids for sure. And I also will tell you that like I never had like a fight with my wife in any way. It's actually great. Like my coworkers, I've had plenty of blow ups over the years, but my wife, no.
We take it out at work.
We take it out of
That's
work.
healthy.
We punch holes. So I came in the next day, and our head of design had put a little sign over it that we said, "Do things that matter," or like I swore in that sign, so I won't say it. But like instead of "Do things that matter," it said "Punch things that matter." And so there was a sign, it was a plaque
Very
basically
clever.
for the next 3 years on that lived there. So anyway, I sent
That's
a
wild.
message. I have a great management team. Ryan called me and was like, look, I have a lot of trust in our management team. We can have these debates. We're not attacking people, and have a lot of trust in for you, HA. So these are the conversations we're going to have. And I was like, yep, that's totally fair. And I
think
appreciated that.
Lively debates should be part of every culture. That's how you
Yes.
get good ideas. Okay, let's jump in. We've got some fun stuff to discuss. We're going to spend most of this episode talking about the CEO Summit because I wasn't there, sadly, and I want to make sure that I learn all the things you guys learned. So we're going to break it down.
We're going to teach Austin today.
There we go. I actually really appreciate you guys kept me in the loop through our text message group, so I felt very involved, and that was very sweet of both of you.
It was just Sam and I taking selfies and look.
I know,
hey,
it was great. It was
Up in the old balloon.
So all of us started 2024, the three of us, with this cautious optimism. At the end of the year, there'd been some positive macroeconomic news around inflation and rate cuts for 2024. So we felt, this is a good sign. We did discuss how private markets don't flip on their heads. It takes a minute for them to see the benefits of these types of things, just like it takes a minute for them to feel the pain. Like inflation was a known entity in Q3 of 2021, and it hit private markets and tech in Q2 of 2022, even though public markets had reacted immediately. So we felt that even though public markets were picking up, it's going to take a minute for all of us to see all the benefits of it. Now the year started, and it's been quite the start to the year. 30,000 people have been laid off so far in tech. Just today, DocuSign announced more layoffs. Snap announced more layoffs. Spotify, I think, announced cost-cutting as well. And
has Salesforce announced theirs yet? Salesforce is like the clear.
They did some as well recently, 700, I think.
Because after January 31st, their fiscal year, it's like the week. This is like, I don't know. I always thought this was like doomsday week at Salesforce.
Yeah, like it seems like Snap did it right before their earnings as well. So now everybody, I'm curious to see, like, with this start of the year, what was the sentiment in the room? Were people feeling cautiously optimistic? Were they bearish? Sam, like, what did you feel there?
I still felt cautious optimism. I didn't feel bearishness. I felt that, I mean, I think to the point of like some of the layoffs, it's hard not to hear about these layoffs and then point to what's happened with Meta and look at the operating performance of that company and feel like most CEOs are feeling like it's possible to do a lot more with fewer people than they had previously imagined. And so I don't necessarily think that the layoffs are a sign of weakness. That for some companies they definitely are, but for other companies they might be, a sign of strength. But in that room, and this is, for people out there listening, this was the Pavilion CEO Summit. It was about 130 CEOs and founders, and a few, deputies, but mostly it was all CEOs and founders in Scottsdale at this point about 2 weeks ago. And I mean, I think what I sensed was that a lot of people had had a really difficult 2023. A lot of people felt like they'd made a lot of difficult decisions. And I definitely felt like there was a resolve in the room, a resolve. And I think there was also maybe just a little bit less like irrational optimism or irrational
Mm,
exuberance. And so there wasn't anybody talking about, selling their company for $10 billion or IPO, but there were a lot of people talking about profitability. There were a lot of people talking about they'd made the cuts that they needed to make. There was a lot of people, including, we mentioned some of the listeners to the show that had a terrible 2023, but now we're seeing consistent growth. There were companies, like AJ and QuotaPath that had a strong December. They just had a great January. So I think cautious optimism, it's all on a relative basis. It's not cautiously optimistic that we're going to, achieve 12 times or 15 times or 30 times ARR valuations over the next 3 to 6 months. It's cautious optimism that we're executing against a slightly more conservative plan, but we are executing against it. And,
mm.
certainly I mentioned this already, but, we had Pavilion itself had a fantastic January. We beat both our internal and board plans. We'll see how February turns out, but and again, and we did all of that with less than half the people that we had at the company a year ago. And I don't know that everybody had exactly the same ratio, but I think everybody felt like we've made the difficult decisions. We're aligned against a realistic growth target, and we're going to execute against it. And certainly the economy is not, I'm sure that there are risk factors, but as it stands right now, the economy and there's not a different level of headwinds than there were 3 months ago. It's the same basic economic environment, if not slightly better.
Seems like everybody is in the same mind frame then, because that's probably the right way to think about it, right? That the market is slowly improving. We've all adjusted and corrected our businesses. We've learned and grown as professionals and as leaders. We have the right plan. We got this. Like that's a good sentiment to feel in a room of 130 plus CEOs. AJ, you must have had you have the most conversations at these types of events. Like I admire it. Like as an introvert, like I admire it. I think you messaged and said you've spoken to 50% of the people that were there, which is wild. What was top of mind for them strategically? Like if you remember last year's CEO summit, it was very much fundraising, valuations, burn rate, right? Like those were like the three things that we were talking to people about over and over again. What was top of mind this time around?
First off, I appreciate that, Austin. But since my wife listens to this, she thinks I'm embellishing that number 50%. She's probably like rolling her eyes, is like, yeah, right. But I actually did make sure to talk to as many people. And I think the comment that Sam made about resolve is true. And so when you think about a CEO summit, first off, is very unique because there isn't another conference where you get together with peers. As a
True.
CEO, that's something that is just something that we just don't experience on a day to day. The three of
That's
us
true.
are fortunate that we get to do this on a week to week basis. And I think I even made the comment in my notes of like, I really enjoyed this forum
Yeah.
because we're three CEOs.
Yeah.
So we got to do exactly that. And in that world, you let your defenses down, right? You basically, you're not there to sell each other. I think there were definitely people there that had some level of that, but I ultimately found a group of people that were like looking there to help each other out and support and talk about the realities of the situation. I think Matt Blumberg's talk last year hit on some of the realities that we had yet to go through. This year, we went through those realities and had a very different perspective. And rather than us like questioning or being skeptical about it, we were like, yeah, I felt that. I heard that. I saw that.
Hmm.
And that was a pretty big key moment where I felt there was the quality of the audience was really high. So credit to Sam and Pavilion for doing that. But in doing so, it allowed us as CEOs to have this kind of shared kinship to have these conversations out in the open that we're going to keep obviously private. We're not going to talk about those conversations, but that was a really good opportunity for us to really understand and see the problems and challenges that we were seeing through the lens of others. You don't get that. If you get that once a
Yeah.
year, that's great. And that's why it's probably my favorite event that I do a year, Sam. So I at least,
Oh.
well, the year's
Yeah.
early yet. So calm down there a little bit.
It's true. Like you don't get like a peer summit like that very often, right? And I remember, if you think about it, a lot of the people, they always return, right? So the first one, the people from the first summit came to the second to the third. So now you're 2-3 years into building these relationships, and everybody feels a lot more safer talking openly with each other, which is a really cool element of this as well. Okay, so something that a lot of people that attended have been talking about is Jason Lemkin's talk. It seems to be the standout talk. It's on, a lot of people are sharing it on social media, but it's on YouTube. Our listeners, after finishing this episode, should go listen to it. It's great. I watched it over the weekend, and the core of his talk is that it's time to get back to growth. It's really hard. It's supposed to be hard, but it's time to get back to growth. And there were a few specific points that stood out. The first was that we're in the 4th year of radical change, and there are a lot of people that just can't take this anymore. A lot of companies that fell out of product market fit, and founders and executives who just don't have the juice to keep going. He also said that we have a lost generation of professionals who just don't want to do the hard stuff. VPs of sales who don't want to sell or travel, heads of CS who don't want to talk to customers. He mentioned that he interviewed 50 VPs of sales last year and rejected 42 of them because of this. And then companies have way too many people for every dollar of revenue. He spoke about how it was quite common to see companies with 30 million in revenue with 300 plus employees. And technically, for 30 million in revenue, you should have 100, maybe 125, 150 employees. It'll be even more confusing in the future now, because we're going to live in this bifurcated world where you will have some companies that can play by different rules. You'll have the open AIs that can throw the kitchen sink at people, but most of us can't, and we need to come to terms with that. So it seems like this roller coaster of the last 4 years has destroyed a generation of professionals. A lot of companies, has taken the juice out of founders. The thing I found really interesting was that talent component of his talk, where why have people not adjusted or learned their lessons? Like, how can a head of CS who's interviewing with Jason Lemkin say to him that I'm not going to talk to customers? How can a VP of sales who's gone through various rounds of interviews before getting to Jason Lemkin for one of the portfolio companies say, I don't want to sell, I need all these things to be able to do my job? That entitlement is still coming across. And it's not like these people haven't felt the pain of this market, because they're looking for a job and hence talking to him for the job, right? And it's clear as day as to what's happening. It doesn't take a scientist or macroeconomist to figure out what's going on in the world. So why is it so hard for people to come to terms with this? Sam, you probably think about this a lot. Like, why is it so hard?
I will say that to the point of Lemkin's talk, Lemkin talked about a lost generation of talent, but he wasn't the only one. If I could point to one common theme in the room, it was, I could say, sometimes a very vocal level of frustration with the quality of the talent at all of the companies that were in the room.
Sam, the only thing I would just a caveat there, and I want to tell the audience this wasn't just a bunch of CEOs that were coming together and venting about their people. So like the people are out listening to this and like, oh, it sounds like it's just a bunch of CEOs whining about their teams.
No, I'm not saying, I don't know if that's what it sounded like. I just can tell you that there was an element of that, Lemkin, why is it so hard for people to adjust? I don't know why, but I know that I think because the tenor of first of all, I don't think a lot of people are getting direct feedback. So that's a big reason. I think there've been a lot of, I sometimes just feel like such a broken record. We've been talking about interest rates. We've been talking about the availability of capital. That's pretty much one of the common themes on this show, is what we talk about. And how does that manifest itself in different places? one of the places that it manifests itself is the tenor of conversation around what it means to work. And, all of the conversation about work-life balance and work-life integration, all of remote work, all of that happened in a period of very, very low interest rates, in a period of freely available capital. And it wasn't presented in the context of any kind of capital availability filter, right? It wasn't, hey, everybody, burnout's a real problem, and employers really need to respect personal boundaries, particularly after hours, because we have 0% interest rates. That wasn't how it was framed. It was presented as fact. It is presented still as fact. And so people believe it as fact that there's a certain relationship that you should have with work, that overstepping that relationship is inappropriate, whether or not the work is done. That if you say that I have unlimited vacation, I should take unlimited vacation. And I don't want to hear you say that I shouldn't take it. Seriously. If you say I have my personal boundaries, if you message me over the weekend, that's inappropriate. And the response of the people that own larger percentages of the company and understand what that ownership is worth, to the point of our conversation with Peter Walker, all of our collective response is, well, who cares if I'm messaging you over the weekend? We got to get stuff done. This is serious stuff. We're trying to build a company here. And yeah, I know that we have unlimited vacation, but you have a big project due and we need you to be in the office tomorrow. And that there has not been a dialogue. And again, I mentioned this in response to October 7th, but there just hasn't been a counterweight to the perspective that I've articulated. So you might get fired. And you might be out of work for a long time, but did anybody speak to you and say, I don't think you're working hard enough? And maybe they did. And maybe those people decided, well, you know what? You take a hike because I don't want to work that hard because I have other things in my life that are more important than work. And I think all of that's, I just think, what are we talking about right now? Those people are in a very difficult spot because of what all of us are experiencing from an efficiency perspective. I was just on a management meeting with my team, and we were talking about, because we have this incredible, one of the members of the ELT is a guy named Tom Andrews who runs Systems and Insights. And I think we're automating something like over 1 million tasks a week or a day. I don't know, but it's some incredible level of automation that's happening across all of the different systems that run Pavilion. And that will only increase, now that we have our new member hub live when folks are listening to this. And so my point is that I certainly appreciate people that are saying, this is the role that work plays in my life. It is not all encompassing. I have other things that I want to attend to. I need to manage my health. I need to manage my relationship with my partner. I'm not going to be available from these hours, and I'm going to hold a hard line. That is their right to do that. And there's no judgment, but you have to understand, just like anything in life, that there are consequences. And that if you choose not to do that, and we figure out that we don't need you as much as we thought we did, or that there's somebody else that's willing to put in more work or more effort, or that we can automate that job, or that we can backfill that role in Argentina or in Nepal, well, we're going to do that too. And the morality of it, I think, is sometimes people feel really energized by, that it's bad versus good. The person that sent me the message on the weekend is bad, and I am good for virtuously telling them to take a hike because I will respond to that message at 9 a.m. on Monday. And I don't think that there's morality at play. I just think that the market shifts, the market moves. It's not a static system. It's a dynamic system. And when they decide that they're ready to, hey, everybody, I'm ready to come back, we might say, as Lemkin did to 42 out of 50 VPs of sales, that's okay. You are not needed anymore. And I think that's a very scary thing for a lot of people. And again, I still think that we're experiencing, that's why he said it's the lost generation, because it's not permanent. It's just that, like, there's going to be a new group of people that are emerging that are used to expectations, and maybe we as companies get better at articulating our expectations, because it's a failure on my part and on our part as an employer. If we say that we're not going to message you on the weekend, then we shouldn't message you on the weekend. And if we say that you're going to have great work-life balance, but then we feel like we can't give you that work-life balance because we need to be profitable, then that's on us too. But I think that's why he said it's a lost generation, because there's a certain group and we're not going to change their mind. I'm not going to change their mind. They're going to say, those people, my working hours are your not work.
So where
not your
did they
work.
go? Like,
I don't
what
know
happened?
where they go. I don't know. AJ, where do you think? Where do they
Well,
go?
I go back to something that you said in the summer here, which I use a lot actually, is you encourage what you allow. And the biggest challenge to this is that there is so many new founders and new startups and new operators that were created, and new executives and new VPs that had never actually come up in a scaled company of going 0 to 100 million in revenue. Now they go 0 to 1 million, and that's their learning. And so they've never actually worked in an environment where that's happened. I think that where do they go is a great question. I think that they are working. I see this pop up. They're working to become individual contributors. VP of sales are applying for jobs. I mean, we have an AE posting, and we're getting a lot of VP of sales that are applying for that role.
Really?
Yeah. And so some of it is just like either their own ego, and I think they just have to. It's just like maybe taking a step back. And I haven't interviewed any of those folks yet, but Ryan has, and there's been interesting conversations. I was talking to a founder last week, and he was like, "AJ, I have to fire my designer. We've had lots of issues and just like working, but I have this really big potential customer meeting with a Fortune 500, and I wanted to take his designs that he had done for a different customer and make some changes. So I called him at 8:55, and he didn't answer, which is fine. And an hour and a half later, he sends me a text like, "Hey, is 8:55? Hey, should I expect you to call me at 8:30 Central? Is that appropriate? Is that something that I should have? The
AM,
CEO
PM.
AM."
Oh, wow.
Oh,
But
AM?
he called him at 8:55 AM, not 8:30, 8:55. And so he was like, he just wrote
Wow.
this, and it threw off this founder's like day of like, there's what the heck? And he called me because I know this person, and I was like, you have to fire them. You have to fire.
Yeah.
Like, that's not even a question. Which he
Because
did.
that's also like a snappy type of like message.
But that's the entitlement factor that came up that we heard. Yeah, that we talked about, is like, what world do you think that and this is someone that's been in the working world for quite some time, by the way, but it's like, it's so when I hear lost generation, it's not about a real generation. It's about a group of people that have gotten used to this learned behavior and entitlement to expect all the things. And now the challenge for us as founders is actually what I hear when Sam's talking about this is like, it's really hard to walk these things back, these perks, like unlimited vacation, or you're taking off all these days, or half day, or we're working
100%.
4 days a week. Like, how do you as a founder, with the environment changing, say that, hey, we're going back and doing this? And even just with office environments, like obviously the WebMD video was awful,
Yeah.
but it was also like, yeah, you're going to get memed out of the room if you do any of these, or the Cloudflare.
But that was just really bad. Like, you can
That
be
was bad.
stylish
Yeah,
as
that was
well
bad.
and like
But
convince
that's my
people.
point stands is like, how do you change any of your perks from 2 years ago?
I think one of the things I've been thinking about this a lot, because there are also certain perks that you give that when you first give them, they're very exciting to get. But then in year 3 of that perk, does anyone really care? Does anyone care that STA shuts down, goes offline for the last 2 weeks of the year, extra vacation? Like, does anyone really consider that as a extra perk? Maybe a few, but maybe some just take it as status quo. And so now what we do is, if we're announcing anything new, it has an expiry date. And so there's an option for us to renew it moving forward. And we make a big deal if we renew it, And if we don't think it's the right thing to do, we take it away. And I think that that helps with some of this. At least for us, it has been helpful, where we say we're trying this. It's going to expire at the end of 2024. We are doing this because of ABC reason. If we think it facilitates that, we see some proof, we'll extend it further. But if it doesn't, then why are we doing this? And we'll take it away. And people appreciate that as well. And I think it gives you the ability to take things back. That's the way to do it, I think. AJ, it seems like a lot of, when they say building a company in a downturn is great because of the constraints and it creates good habits, it seems like the opposite of that. We're seeing it with professionals and companies, that when you get into these frothy moments, it creates really bad habits organization wide and in individuals as well. One of the things that you were touching on is how these people are now in market with bad habits, looking for jobs in a market where there's just not that many jobs for people with bad habits. When you are looking at a VP of sales that's applied to an AE role in your business, and this is not an enterprise AE role, right? It's like mid-market type of AE role. What's your sentiment around that person's candidacy? Are you interested and intrigued? Like, can I get this person with all this business acumen to do this job? Or is this a red flag for you? Like, how are you looking at that?
I think my younger career would have been definitely a red flag, but I think I have to take the environment with it, and it's a conversation. I'm curious. I think that's my perspective of like, what is, if, and honestly, it's like, I'm not just going to take a call to take a call. So you wouldn't want to go into it just being actually genuinely interested. I would say that I would be just curious as to like, how is that person thinking about their career and where they are, and are they willing to put in the work that it's going to take? Which we have all seen this career step ladder of SDR into AE, into maybe a mid-market to an enterprise seller. Maybe you move over to CS as an IC, become a team lead, team manager over a 10-year period, right? And so someone that's at a VP of sales, I'm just like, why did they take did they take a VP of sales role because they just wanted the title and that's what they were thinking about, and they realized that was an entitlemation for them of where they were, and were they thoughtful about their choice? I am not opposed. I wouldn't be opposed to hiring someone. I think about that for myself though. If like I left and wanted to be a CRO, would someone hire me as a former CEO?
We've discussed this. I think it's a red flag.
You said it's a red flag. Do you still stand by that 100%. Position?
Yeah. Like if you one day applied for a CRO role, I think they would look at that.
So I guess the question
is, listen, they would want to have a conversation, right? But there would be the first thing that'll flow into your brain is, like, because you're going to be cautious in that moment. So you'll be like,
but this is going to happen, Austin. This is, we're going to go through a period.
It's not going to be easy. It's not like
9 out of 10 startups are going to fail.
Yeah.
9. That means there will be 9 out of 10 CEOs on the market are you going to hire them as CEOs?
I think it's going to be a hard journey for them. It's not going to be a walk in the park. It's not like, they were CEOs, their business didn't make it, now they can go and get the world's best CRO job or CMO job or anything like that. I think it's going to be really tricky for them. You'd find a lot of them. I think the path that does make sense for a lot of these people is they go inside venture firms, they become entrepreneurs in residence, they become operational partners over that, some become investors. Like that path is like a clean path for them. But I think the other
you're
one,
killing my hopes and dreams. I can never work for you.
My friend,
I can never work for
Austin. Okay, there was another part of his conversation that I thought was really interesting, which was he said that getting customers is supposed to be really hard, and it's getting harder because no one really needs one more SaaS solution. We discussed it a bunch of weeks ago when we looked at the G2 data, how in Q3 of 2018, there were 50,000 tech companies. They're now 125,000 as of Q2 2023. The sector has increased by 7% per quarter. Last week, 2 weeks ago, we discussed how we're going to go from 350 unicorns to 1,400 in just the US in 10 years. So it's going to get harder to get customers and keep them because of two things: saturation, competition. And then later in his talk, he mentioned that when you talk to product people at companies like Intercom, what they're trying to do is automate 50% of support. And he literally said, we're trying to get 50% of the support to be handled by, and I quote, a hallucinating chatbot. And so I think back to the lessons from PLG. And I think one of the lessons from PLG for all of us is give the customers what they want, what they need, not what they want. And so many companies chose PLG that shouldn't have. It hurts me. Many of them used to cite Gartner in saying that 75% of buyers prefer a rep-free experience. I went and read that report. Literally, the next line is, and those who purchase through digital channels alone are more likely to regret their purchase. I feel like if we survey customers today, a lot of them will say, I don't mind automated support compared to the human support I'm getting today. But I don't think AI is where it needs to be to compete with an elite human to human support experience. And I feel like if we go down this direction of trying to automate all of this, we're going to take on a lot of churn risk in a market with so much competition and saturation. Sam, do you think that's like a fair concern? Am I underestimating AI? Am I overestimating the supply of people that can give elite experiences? Like, what do you think about this?
Well, first, what did you say about PLG? What did you say the lesson was?
For me,
That
it's that
we need to give the customers what they need, not what they want. Tell
a
me more
lot of
about that.
I think a lot of companies that listen, I think PLG is this beautiful motion. I love it for some types of companies. We've discussed how for a company like Calendly, PLG is just the perfect way to go to market. I think there were a lot of companies that convinced themselves that they can be a PLG company, but they couldn't. They were too complex and they didn't have the dynamics that Slack and Calendly type of companies had, which is broad organization-wide usage, easy to sign on and get value, etc., etc. So I feel like a lot of companies picked wrong. And one of the reasons why they pitch wrong is that they think that customers want a rep-free experience. They don't want to interact with salespeople. Salespeople are sleazy and suck, and I would love to be able to do this myself. And Gartner is always quoted by those people as saying 75% of buyers want a rep-free experience. And I just feel like most people don't go and read the report. And if you go through the intellectual honesty of reading the report and seeing what it actually says, literally the next line says, but they end up regretting their purchase. And so that was the PLG point.
So your point is people need a premium human interaction, no matter what they say that they want.
To make a purchase that makes sense, not just to make a purchase, but to actually make the right purchase, to figure out, should I buy this thing? And how should I implement it? Like, you need the human to help you through that in an ideal world.
Well, I think your concerns are valid. I think we're in a filtering. We talked last week, and it's something I've been thinking a lot about. The point that I made, because I hadn't made it before. I was listening to everybody talk, and then it crystallized, right? Vitamin, as you might say, Asid, versus painkiller, right? Must have versus need to have. And I made the point that nobody has a need to have.
It was a good point, by the way. I thought about that a lot as well.
I've
been thinking about it too.
It made me a little sad.
Lemkin said this. That's the version of the same thing, right? That nobody has a need to have. And so what do you do? And I don't have a perfect answer. I think it relates to the company with product market fit. The product will be defined holistically as the entirety of the experience that you have interacting with that company. And there are going to be people that get the right amount of automation relative to customer support, and there are going to be people that get the wrong amount of automation. There's going to be people that have the right type of salesperson and the wrong type of salesperson. This isn't rocket science. My point is that any company that there are going to be emergent winners, and that's not because they are must-haves versus nice-to-haves. I think the filter is really the quality of execution. And I think that we're going to see a bunch of companies not succeed, not because of PLG versus not PLG or automation versus not automation, but because they figured out where are the places to add automation and where are the places to add human connection. They figured out how many salespeople do we really need. By the way, I think that AJ going to be a CRO would be a problem only because he's been a CEO his whole life and probably is terrible at taking orders or direction from somebody else, as both of us are probably, meaning, me and you, Asid. But I think a VP of sales that says, I want to be an individual contributor might actually work out, because if they really want to close business, they probably have a higher commercial acumen. We hired, our VP of sales is an individual contributor, and he manages now 2 people. But, and he's great, by the way. He's like the best seller. Him and the other VP of partnerships, Aaron Leader, are the 2 best sellers we have. They're completely
Aaron's a gangster.
Yeah, gangster, just completely autonomous. They manage themselves. They just send in deals, periodically.
But Sam, let me click in on that for a second.
Yeah.
When you met this, what's his name? The VP of sales?
Brian Elsesser. He worked
Okay.
for Jason.
So
Lemkin.
Brian, so when you met Brian, when you looked at him, you could see the energy that this guy wants to sell, right?
Yes.
That is a rare thing to see. Most of the time, when the VPs of sales are applying to sales jobs, it's because they wanted to be a VP of sales. They're no longer a VP of sales. They're trying to apply for those jobs. They're not getting them. And so they've now compromised to this AE role. They're like, oh, yeah, I'll go be an AE for a while. When they're being interviewed, you don't see the spark in their eyes. You don't see the energy. They don't want to go and sell. They're just compromising. They're trying to put food on the table during a tricky period. And the risk with them that most people see is the minute the market gets better and there's an opportunity for this person to go be a leader, they don't want to run at that opportunity. That's the fundamental risk. And so Brian's are out there. They really are. But I think they are rare. And you can immediately see it in them when you meet them that this person loves closing business. It's in their eyes. And I think founders have to qualify for that thing. Am I talking to this version of a VP of sales looking to sell? Or am I talking to a person who is just compromising, and the minute they can go do what they actually want to do, they'll go do that thing?
I think that's probably right. The broader question you have is, what's going to happen if we go from 50 to 125,000? If we have so many different companies, who's going to win? And is it going to be the must-haves versus the nice-to-haves? And my point is, there are no must-haves, but there are going to be winners. Mm-hmm. And so what are going to be the defining qualities of the winners? Will automation play a role? 100% automation will play a role in the winners, but what are the other factors? I guess if I had to distill it down to 2 other factors, I would distill it down to customer centricity, like really building the entirety of not just the go-to-market motion, but the operational motion of the business around customer empathy. And then I would say the quality of the people that work at the company, to the point of the people that hired the VPs of sales as ICs that are settling versus the people that hired Brian Elsesser. And I think if you have, and those incredibly high quality people, again, to the point of the whole conversation we've had about employee engagement effectively, coupled with deep customer centricity and empathy, coupled with a category, whether you call it nice to have or must have, just has enough customers that you can execute your game plan against, those are the companies that are going to win. There will be automation. There will be some human connection. I don't know exactly what the measurement is, but I think that the defining quality is the people that are deeply listening to their customers with a group of employees and teammates that actually care about the customer and are not just punching the clock and saying, why the heck did you just Slack me at 7 p.m.? I told you that I'm not available anytime past 6:59.
Yeah.
AJ, what do you think?
Yeah. So the first part of that conversation, I was over here taking bullet points from my resume. So far I have it on unmanageable.
Add numbers to the resume.
I'm unmanageable 55% of the time. Is that what you mean by numbers, Sam? The second part of the conversation, I was listening when you said customer centric, and that's what we need to hire for as well. The people, it's really fascinating to like have the conversation, and how many people talk to your customers, especially if you're hiring an executive. How many people went and maybe logged into your app if you are a PLG application? How many had feedback on the persona, on your ideal customer profile? It doesn't matter what role or responsibility that person is coming in for. And oh, by the way, I love that we're talking about hiring. I love that we're talking about hiring and talent, because Asid, I know you are interviewing, I'm interviewing, Sam's probably interviewing. We're actually talking to people, and it's weird.
After a while,
right?
it's so weird.
It feels
so
strange.
odd. I
Yeah.
interviewed somebody yesterday and it was really weird. Like I
So
felt
don't-
like I had the right things. You know this framework, you know what questions to ask, you know how you want to evaluate this person, how you want to get them to start feeling comfortable so you can pull out the actual thing that you're looking to get from this interaction. But your execution is like you're playing a sport that you used to play well after 3 years, and it's just a little bit choppy.
you're out of practice. But Jocko actually at the CEO Summit had really good feedback on this. I know
What did he say?
he said if you in your first interview, let's say you're talking to someone and you're saying, here are the 3 things that matter. Here are the 3 values of our company. 3 values. Now, we navigate with data, we cultivate curiosity, whatever, so on and so forth for your first interview. Say you're the CEO and you take the last interview and you're like, hey, Ryan Milligan talked about 3 values. What were those 3 values? Do they take notes? Are they writing things down? I really like that. I don't know if Sam, you have a differing opinion around that point, but I thought that was a really strong point to make. And it's really because we haven't been doing this we're out of practice.
Yeah, we're out of practice.
We have to think about these things and like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But it's like, that's just an interview. That's what you should.
We have less mistakes to make, right?
Yeah, less mistakes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I think one of the things it's just important to always highlight though is that for us, the 3 of us, for companies at our size and stage, as well as a lot of our listeners, a lot of this macro information is important to keep in mind so that you know what potholes not to fall into. But you should have the utmost confidence that with all of these things out there, if you're building a 50-person company, a 100-person company, whatever it is, you can make sure that each and every one of those people is absolutely elite. There are enough of those absolutely elite people out there for you to be able to go and find them and hire them. It takes work, it takes effort, it's not easy, but you can build a great company. And it is such an unlock. Like Sam, you've spoken about how the 28 that you have right now, they're just killers, right? They're complete gangsters, each and every one of them. And when you have everyone at that level, it is so powerful. We are just a little bit out of practice and we weren't doing that before. And that's just this mindset shift that we all have to make. Okay, so let's touch on one last element of this, which is this culture in businesses. So Lemkin spoke about how a lot of the companies are shutting down because founders don't have the juice to keep growing. It seems like we built the wrong culture in a lot of businesses because a lot of these businesses establish their cultures in frothy markets with the abundance of capital and whatnot. If we define culture as the environment that enables a person to feel connected and committed to the business and the work that they're doing, we've just set the wrong environment. And it seems like it's hard to get it right when you establish it, but it seems like it's really, really hard to change it once you've established it. And that is part of the issue. Sam, is there any operational, if we get a bit operational, if somebody calls you, a CEO calls you and says, I need to change my culture, what do I do, man? What do you say? How do you change culture?
I think it's a very, very difficult question, Asad. And we are running low on time in this episode. And AJ has to leave pretty soon.
Until next time.
But I have the answer. I
know what to tell you.
It will be revealed on next week's Topline.
I love that. I think Sam just created a new segment, the tease. I love it. I think that's right. That's where we're going to leave it. On this.
You can change your culture anytime you want by following these 3 simple steps. And now a word from our sponsor. Hey, CMOs and marketing VPs, that's Chief Marketing Officers, join Pavilion in New York City, the Big Apple, for the CMO Summit on April 18th. The CMO Summit. At CMO Summit, you'll connect with other amazing B2B marketing executives and learn from folks like Udi Ledergor from Gong, Latny Conant of Sixth Sense, Andrea Kale of Help Scout on topics like mastering the customer lifecycle, AI and marketing, and building an iconic brand. Register now at joinpavilion.com/CMO Summit and use the code TOPLINE for an exclusive 15% discount on your ticket. That's joinpavilion.com/CMO Summit and the code TOPLINE for an exclusive 15% discount on your ticket. I will be there, and I look forward to seeing you there. It's going to be fantastic. We got to go. So shout outs and wins of the week. Austin wasn't paying attention to the clock as usual.
God. There we go. Okay. Shout outs. Who's going?
AJ.
I'll go shout
first.
out. I'm going to give a shout out to Mike Hoffman. Mike is is Mike the chapter head for New York?
He is the chapter head with Andrea Kale.
Yeah, Mike and I were on a call. He was on a call with a bunch of other people, and he pulled out a Topline episode soundbite to help a sales process.
Oh wow!
Which was awesome. Yeah, like kudos to Mike for doing that, and it probably closed the deal. So good job, Mike.
Good job, Mike.
Look at that.
Listen to the Topline.
That's very cool. Okay, I'll go next quickly. I just want to shout out the two of you. You guys kept me very involved during the CEO Summit. I was sadly unable to make it. Aaron made a post. Aaron from your team, Sam, made a post right after the summit. Like 100 and something people signed up. Everyone but one person turned up. That was me. Sadly, I had to stay back because of a family thing. But I was sad to miss it. And you guys kept me very involved. And I felt that was very kind of you guys. So thank you to you guys and shout out to you guys.
Yeah, I'll give a shout out to my operations team. If I forget anybody, I'm sorry. Rupa, Samantha Carducci, Tom Andrews, Carly Pallas. Why? Because, and then especially Jeremy Chaplin, who's been doing a lot of the branding work. If you're listening to this on Sunday, that means tomorrow our member hub is going live to the entire global community. We announced it last Thursday on our annual kickoff, and the people that attended the annual kickoff got special early beta access. This has been a big project over the last couple of months. We decided to do this late October. We started the RFP November. We're launching it first week of February. It's pretty, I guess this is the first full week of February, but it's pretty incredible work by the aforementioned all-stars and gangsters that now work at Pavilion. And Colin Campbell. Sorry, I forgot you, Colin. But everybody on the ops team and really the member success team, including Tanisha and Liz, everybody that's working to create this experience. It's going to be awesome. It's got a directory. It's got all of our courses. It's got all kinds of content. It's got Topline embedded directly into it. It's got the knowledge base. It's got your chapters and special groups for all of the sub communities. So it's community.joinpavilion.com. I think it's community.pavilion. Is it community? It's community.joinpavilion.com. So check it out if you're a member, and if you're not, become a member and you can take a stroll through. But thanks everybody for all your hard work. That's my shout out.
There we go. That's the episode.
Right. That is it.
Next week, we will tell you how to change your culture. It's very easy. It involves some stink bombs. Keep listening. Keep listening. It involves new underwear. All right. We'll talk to you next week. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
This episode was brought to you by the book Ecosystem-Led Growth, a new book by Crossbeam CEO Bob Moore. Pre-order your copy at elgbook.com. That's elgbook.com.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Topline. To learn more about the trends, news, and developments impacting the world of B2B SaaS, head to joinpavilion.com, where more than 10,000 of the world's top go-to market leaders go to achieve and unlock their full professional potential.